This channel is supported by Truefire. Truefire is an online library of lessons from some of my favourite players. There's thousands of lessons on there. You can use the promo code JNC40 to get 40% off of any of their courses. I don't know if any of you guys have the same sort of feeling, but I can sort of fondly remember there being like a few times a year that you get into like the Neural DSP plugin hype thing, and you get to try a trial, and you know, you go, wow, that's pretty cool. It'd be like an artist that you like, or it'd be some amp that you're a fan of. I was kind of thinking to myself, what happened to that? Because it's actually been longer than you think since there's been a release, I think. So, anyway, I wanted to talk in this video about what happened to Neural DSP. Now, I'm going to use Cory Wong for the cleans here, and I was going to use Cory Wong for the drive, and then I turned on Scuff and S gear, and I ended up liking the drives more than that. But anyway, there's some great tones to be had across all of the Neural DSP plugins. Mateus Asato I particularly liked. I like Cory Wong and also Pliny when they work. But anyway, let's just talk about, you know, where did Neural DSP go? The way that Neural DSP started, I think there was like a couple of releases, like 14 releases. The times when I think they came on my radar were like Archetype Pliny, which I think was 2019, Nolly, which I think was also 2019. And from there, things seemed to sort of kind of launch up. And there was like a peak of Neural DSP, I think, peak saturation, which was like 2021. I've got it down here. It's like maybe their best year, or 2023. So in 2021, we had Gojira, we had Soldano Slow, we had Tim Henson's plugin, which actually I think it still sounds pretty good too. I mean, all of this stuff holds up. And then the Petrucci plugin in December. So if you imagine, like, you've got Gojira, who are a huge band, right? The Soldano Slow, which is, you know, one of the premier sort of amps, and to have like an official collaboration with them. Tim Henson, who, like, of young guitarists, you know, is there anyone that you can think of that is sort of more well known than that guy? And then not only that, you sign it off in December with John Petrucci, who's now in on the Neural DSP stuff. And so I think 2021 was a big year. That must have been like printing money, right? Because you got like any Gojira fan's going to get involved, any Petrucci fan's going to get involved, any Polyphia fan's going to get involved. Not only that, you got Soldano SLO, which is like, yeah. Anyway, so that must have been a great year. Not only that, there was another year which was pretty significant, which is 2023, And so there was a few years here where you'd have 4 releases, and so in 2023 there was Morello, there was also Asato. So those, again, Tom Morello, like super well-known guy. Mateus Asato, if there was one other guy like in that Tim Henson realm, or maybe even beyond, I think maybe Mateus Asato is like one of the biggest like guitar heroes that there is. Anyway, they got a plugin with him. And then the Morgan suite, which came out, which I think, you know, is not necessarily on the Soldano SLO level in terms of being well known, but what was the other release that year? Boogie, innit? Obviously, Boogie starts with B-O-O-G-I-E. So there was some really huge releases, like 2021, 2023, and then 2024. Can you remember what was released in 2024? I couldn't, because there wasn't anything. It was just updates. You know, now this is the thing. Like, these are updates that are clearly taking up a lot of time, because they're basically porting these things. So you're making like Nolly X, Pliny X, and all that stuff, so that they can be ported over to the Quad Cortex. I don't think you get the same injection of cash for that sort of thing, right? Because, as I said, if you imagine like you've got the fan bases of Gojira, you've got the fan bases of Petrucci that have bought, you know, Petrucci. If they then make Petrucci X or Gojira X, they're not going to be buying again, you wouldn't have thought, right? Unless there's someone who had a Quad Cortex and hadn't bought Gojira. But I'm imagining like these Venn diagrams are probably quite overlapping, right, already. So it is worrying, the word, because it's kind of like this must have been like a huge chunk of revenue for Neural DSP, and you think like you don't have to scale plugins in the same way as building hardware. I think 2024, the big thing that happened for Neural DSP was the Nano Cortex, which there was a lot of backlash around online, particularly from Neural DSP fans in general. So that was really interesting to see, because that was like not only is there been like a turning point where they're making less plugins than they used to, because all of their energy seems to be in the plugin world going towards actually rebuilding plugins that they've already sold to make them compatible for Quad Cortex, which I'm not sure if that would have been something that they knew they were going to have to do all along. Well, I guess it must have been, because they were telling us all along, like back in 2020, that they will eventually be able to run all the plugins. But did they expect it to take this long? If you look at like updates and stuff like that, I think quite a lot of these tasks have ended up taking a lot more energy than they expected. But what really I think it goes to show is, you know, if you take 2021, 2023, where you had like 4 plugins released in both of those years, and once you've built the plugin, the costs involved in building them, you know, selling infinite plugins doesn't require you to scale up, doesn't require you to build anything else, kind of just requires that advertising spend once they're already built. You know, imagine the accounts on that, right? 2023, you've got 4 of these plugins that got released. 2024, none. And then 2025, we're now, you know, a third of the way in and still no plugins. So what's happened there? I wonder if there's anything coming this year. Normally the release schedule seems to be something like March, July, October, and then one in December. Do you expect to see any more this year? I wonder. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Are you still using and still vibing with these Neural DSP plugins? Vibing. Gross. But yeah, I still see like a lot of adverts come up on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and they're always doing these collaborations with Jack Gardner and other players. I think Charlie Robbins does a lot as well. And they're one of the only companies that I think, the only like amp modeling companies that really support creators in that way. So I think that it's quite a goodwill in that way, I think, from creators towards Neural DSP. But it's just been like, oh, we went a whole year without a Neural DSP plugin release, like an actual new one. I thought that was kind of surprising, looking back on it.